Morning, everyone, and welcome. Good morning. I'm Reverend Susan Frawley, and it is my honor and privilege to be in this pulpit this morning. Welcome, everyone, to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Niagara Falls. So happy to have you all here today, especially on such a nice day. Although it was foggy this morning if you woke up and got a little disturbed at 6 or 7. For those of us that get up early, everybody else you got to see after it went by. But thank you for choosing to come out here this morning. We appreciate your being here. Let's begin with land and social justice acknowledgements. The land that this church sits upon is land that was stewarded by the Haudenosaunee people. It is land that is considered sacred and holy, and it is our obligation and privilege to hold this land as such. Unitarian Universalists hold dearly social justice as part of our value and part of our covenant with each other within our congregations. So therefore, we always side in love with those who are marginalized in community and make sure that everyone has not just a place at the table, but that their voice is heard strongly, clearly, and with attention. So I call you to be present. Take a moment to turn your cell phones off if you haven't already, and then just take in our sanctuary. And especially when the sun shines in, it just changes sort of just the ambiance of inside of our space. Take a look at our lovely, just right out of my head. I'm going to say flyers, it's not flags, but that's not even the word. What am I looking for? What word am I looking for? Banners, thank you. Because that's going to come in handy a little later, just if you're paying attention to those, with something I'm going to tell you about. Just take a moment to be present, to let yourself be in our space, to let yourself be wholly here. Today, the theme is moral injury. I'll be explaining more and more about that. For our opening words this morning, I have a quote from the poet Asha Maraza, who said, "It's not the bruises on the body that hurt." It's when your phone goes out. Let me repeat that again, because my phone decided to. It's not the bruises on the body that hurt. It is the wounds of the heart, scars of the mind. Words of Aisha Maraza. And so, let us light our chalice, which I believe our usher is going to light our chalice for us this morning. Thank you, Wally. And I invite everyone to find our chalice lighting words in the blue order of service, and let us read it together. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and spirit of freedom. Is the wick up high enough? Sometimes it doesn't.
We'll get there.
There's the wick down. You know what? We'll improvise. That's okay. We can say, you know what? If we take that, I was going to say, okay, because if we take that out, I can make an improvised. Good job, Wally. Thank you so much. There we go. UU Innovation. Let's give it right. Thank you. I invite you to find hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us. Patty's going to play us in, and then I invite everyone to sing. No, it's going to... The fire of commitment burns strong. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, is part of our ritual. It's part of our ceremony of being together that we take time to share our joys, our sorrows, and our concerns in a little soundbite manner. We invite you to come forward for a moment, light a candle if you wish, or if you are remembering someone, you may place one of these stones into the remembrance vase. It's been my tradition for the last 2 years, and it'll continue, that I hope for all hostages in this world to be returned home safely. And so I invite you to come forward and share your joys, your sorrows, and your concerns that they would wish to share this morning. For all the joys, for all the sorrows, for the concerns, for those that have been shared and for those that are held in hearts and in minds, to all of these we give our best intentions, our best energy, and we bless them, amen and a women. For our spiritual practice moment this morning, this is a piece from a journal of mine. I've been sharing this story kind of in the series of moral injury that I've been doing with the different churches that I get to speak at. But I didn't name where this event took place. The event that I'm going to share with you that's contained inside this journal took place inside this church. So when you look around at the banners and some of the things, some of what I'm going to share with you will make sense. And this is a journaling piece from Watching Healing on Moral Injury. It's from 2018. Tonight, I got a very special concert. Some young people that were at a meeting for LGBT community went into the sanctuary to sing. They wanted to practice a song that was going to be part of a community event. I ain't been in church for a long time, one of them said, and there was a hesitancy to enter, but I did my best to make them welcome. They wanted to sing, and the piano is in the sanctuary. So as they came up the stairs to come in, they talked about the different churches that they grew up in, and the choirs that they sang in, and all sorts of stories about Sundays and families and community. That community had been taken away from them, and in some cases banned when these young people came out or were outed by their churches. But with hesitancy and a little bit of fear, but yet determination, they slowly entered. They looked around and they asked questions about the banners and the symbols and the setup of the UU church. And finally, they walked to the piano. They took off the cover and they gently plucked the keys. They sang the song that they had wanted to practice, and then when they finished, they played an old church song. It was Christian in nature. I watched these LGBTQ young people connect through music to a part of their past that was, in this moment, present, beautiful, yearning, and speaking. It was a truly moving experience as they sang to their Lord in their full glory and with love and approval. Now, I've spent a lot of time speaking about moral injury of veterans as I'm doing my internship at the Veterans One Stop. And there is a moral injury that takes place in LGBTQ people that few churches help to heal. But I saw it tonight. There was a balm in Gilead that flowed through those voices, and I saw it. I saw it. And thank you, universe, for the gift. And that is our spiritual practice reading. And so now we will take up the offertory that goes to serve the good works of this church. first learned about moral injury when I was doing my ministerial internship at the Veterans One-Stop Center in Buffalo. The center was a place for vets and their families, and my job was to cover the family room in case anyone brought family or children that needed to be attended to while the vets had meetings. And I also had the dubious honor of making the day's coffee. I am not a coffee drinker. I'm the worst person in the world to give the job of making coffee to, because I have no idea whether it's good or bad. But yet I had this job. I made the coffee, and I also was to set out in some attractive fashion the donuts that were donated every single morning from a local bakery for the vets to have. And I spent a lot of time sitting in the general room, which is where the coffee and the donuts were. And while it took a little time, because vets know when someone is not their own, but after a time of sitting there, eventually we would start to have conversations. These conversations went in a whole lot of places. And sometimes the conversations went into some of the things that people were feeling about their experience of having been in a war. Many of the vets I spoke with were from the Vietnam War era, a terrible war that we later learned carried lots of orders, directives, and demands that called for acting against the base of what many vets felt was their moral center. Returning home and integrating back into civilian life was tough, and carrying these moral injuries, which no one spoke of or had a word for, made it that much harder. Now, by definition, moral injury is the psychological, social, and spiritual harm that arises from failing to prevent or witnessing acts that transgress one's deeply held moral beliefs and values. It can be associated with conditions like PTSD and depression. Recovering from moral injury involves processing deep guilt, shame, or betrayal, sometimes by connecting with personal values, seeking community support, and practicing self-forgiveness. Healing often requires sharing one's story with trusted individuals, engaging in restorative actions, and finding meaning through therapies like adaptive disclosure or cognitive processing therapy. One of the things that brought out information at the Veterans One Stop was something called bagels and blessings. The chief, knowing that I was studying at that time to be a minister and a man of faith himself, said, we should do something to make a faith offering. I'm like, how do we do that when there's so many different backgrounds, whatever? He said, well, let's do something. Let's create bagels and blessings. And a local bagel maker donated the bagels, and we created something of an interfaith gathering. Now, it was interesting because many of the vets felt that they could never walk into a church again, but they came to Bagels and Blessings. That was held in the meeting room, away from the main areas, with a little bit of privacy. We did basic worship, non-denominational. I like to think of it as easy access faith. And after most times, the veterans would sit and talk about how they felt about God, or religion, or their roots. And a few times, some just cried. And I practiced something called non-anxious presence by just sitting and listening and being there. And as I learned more about their wounds of spirit, I started to see that moral injury can happen in many other professions. I especially saw it in teachers and police, because that's who my family is, and that's who I hung out with most of the time. But it was still something that people didn't talk about, and the world didn't give it a name. It seemed easier to say that people were just depressed, using substances, violent, or oppositional. In 2026, there is moral injury in more places and in more ways in our world. Our nation's entire approach to immigration, education, nutrition, medical care, and international relations is an affront to our moral basis. And depending on one's religious root, there is moral injury to your personal and honest sense of what is right and true in the world. This is one of the values that we hold as Unitarian Universalists, the personal and independent search for truth and meaning. And if one has done this, or is in the process of doing so, these harms against those moral bases are very difficult to name, process, and deal with. Now, the approach to dealing with religious moral injury is the same as the other roots of moral injury: recovery. Acknowledging the injury, recognizing that pain stems from a violation of your deeply held moral beliefs, not just fear or danger. Speaking about the experience, breaking a silence by sharing a story with a trusted, non-judgmental individual or in a circle, such as some of the community circles that Erie County Restorative Justice holds, primarily started for those after the Tops massacre, but they still go on for people who need to share their grief, their experiences. Practicing self-forgiveness and compassion, probably one of the most important. Understand that when these aggressions or harms happened, you likely acted under extreme, high-stakes circumstances, and offer to yourself grace for the decisions that were made at that time. Engaging in restorative action. I mentioned restorative justice community circles that take place, but you can also perform altruistic acts, services, or advocacy that align with your ethics so that you can rebuild your sense of integrity. And of course, there's therapies, a variety and great modalities, but it's important to make sure the person you're working with understands moral injury. Probably one of the most important that we can do as a UU church is letting people reconnect with a safe community, finding support groups, finding spaces and places where people come together and support and care and love each other and allow each other to share their experiences without judgment. That's probably one of the things that our UU faith has in great capacity to offer people with moral injury. In fact, the thing that we do, at least on the days when I'm here, and I think some other ministers do too, is that time when we can talk back, or when we share joy, sorrows, and concerns, that the voice of those present are able to be heard and recognized and loved and supported. Again, that support of individual searches for truth and meaning in the world and the ever-present social justice actions that every UU church engages in is a restorative space. Now, what I've just mentioned seems kind of easy, and I know that it's a somewhat incomplete list of causes and approaches. Moral injury is a complicated harm. Everybody wears it and processes it differently. What's the most important thing for us all to know is that we might be sitting next to someone right now who is carrying a moral injury. It might even be ourselves who is carrying that moral injury. So showing care, compassion, and grace to one another can be that balm of Gilead that helps to heal something that maybe even isn't being spoken by the person who is most harmed. For us as a church, creating opportunities to name it, opening supportive space to explore, and moreover, siding in love with those who are in pain, that's what we as UUs do every day. May all who are in pain find comfort and support. Blessed be amen and a women. And so this is Talkback. Talkback is your opportunity to speak your mind on the theme of the day or any of the readings or anything else that's crossed your mind while we're sitting here, because it is your voice in this pulpit that matters most in the grander scheme of congregation. So I invite you to talk back. Yes. Sure, yep. Oh, you want to get to, sorry, Mark, I just realized you had to reach.
I think it's so awesome that this is what you talked about today. I have a sister, half-sister. She grew up in Florida. She grew up religious, and as my life started to change and I came out, her church, which she felt like it was a family growing up with her. These are people she knew since she was a little one, and now she's an adult, and they're telling her, this is wrong, you can't support your sister, right? And it's been probably over 15 years, she left her church, and it left something missing in her. And her and I have always been able to have these wonderful conversations. But wonderfully, I had been talking to her and told her, me and Braxton, we're starting to go to church, and I want him to get a big grand view. I don't want him to have some narrow, one-minded belief, because that's not even our house. So my sister down in Florida, we're on the phone the other day, it's her birthday, and wasn't she driving down the highway, and she goes, I saw one of those Universalist churches. She's never even heard of it. She thought I was nuts, and I was like, I'm telling you, it's not that crazy. It's just, maybe it's a New York thing, but, Florida, all that, a little bit narrower view of things. And it happened on her birthday, where I was like, you know what, Beck, I love this, and it was something that it really was. I never took any personal blame for it. Like, this was her choice, and she can, she could have kept it to herself. She could have just left me out of the narrative, but she chose to leave this place to support her blood family, and she lost something in it. Now she's talking about maybe going and finding another church, and I just think it's wonderful, because she is healing a moral injury that it hurt me that it hurt her. So today was just a wonderful day for it to come up.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Hi, Patty.
I just want to tell you, first of all, I had the nicest text from Marshall yesterday, Marshall Kinney. He texted me his pledge card. However, he also had something to say about the church. And he said, I'm just going to read this to you. He said, it was very timely. He said, thanks to everyone for being so welcoming to us. We are proud to be members of a church that celebrates the inherent dignity of all people, and we look forward to a meaningful and heartwarming experience in the years to come. And thank you to all. I thought that was really nice. And just so you know, this is a husband and husband. So everybody is welcome in this church, and everybody is part of it, and everybody is, part of our fabric.
Thank you. I'll hold it. I'll just hold it in case for anyone else.
Hi, I just wanted to say that, Susan, it's very timely you speak on this topic. I had just been starting to read the term moral injury, and it was somewhat new to me, and words are important when we, so that it helps me organize my thinking and understanding. And that word just encompasses so much of everything I'm seeing in our society today on almost every level. And I think that any ways that we can, in our own way, try to support those. But there are so many people, I believe, who are experiencing real moral injury in our country. And so I really appreciate your sermon very much today, because it's just so timely. Thank you.
So, moral injury. Should I come up? I don't. I know you guys had like a whole little thing about microphone. So moral injury is it's a new term for me too. So I just looked it up to, get a different wording of it, because sometimes different wordings can help you understand it better. I think moral injury is very embedded in schools, especially when it comes from the top to the bottom. The people at the top tend to be, especially in city schools, they tend to be white, and yet the students in front of them, the individuals in front of them, are not. And they do a lot of well-meaning things, but it still doesn't prevent them from perpetrating a moral injury onto the students. And I mean, I work really hard to, when I'm at work, not to perpetuate moral injury to my own students. And that's why recently, well, not recently, maybe in January, when I first started at my school, at the new school that I started at, I guess I was shocked, because the students in my class are diverse, and an adult was like, we only speak English here, because some students speak Spanish. And, that goes against my values, having someone say that. And, I don't like conflict, and I don't like confrontation. So until recently, I didn't really address it, but I felt like it's important as a teacher that I should have addressed it sooner, because that statement did perpetuate a moral injury onto the students, because they're U.S. citizens, they're from Puerto Rico, and they should feel comfortable speaking Spanish or any language, and knowing that no one will make them feel unwelcome or bad for speaking that language. So I'm working on being better, and since I had an opportunity to address it again, I'm happy that I did address it, so that way the students know that it's not my goal as a teacher to not respect part of their culture, which is language is very much part of their culture. So yeah, this just got me thinking about when I first started and hearing an adult say that, and then recently having the opportunity to address it. So yeah.
Anyone else wish to share?
Okay, as an educator, I had my observation this past week. I love my students. Yes, they have disability, but they're very, very smart. So I was doing my observation, and this student was giving a hard time, not wanting to do it. So, I kept on encouraging him, trying to make him do just touching the board. It was just going on the board and touching the answer. But my principal disagreed with me. She thought I should just let him do what he wanted. And he wanted to just lay on the floor. And that's just not the teacher I am. I think if he has a lot of potential, okay, all kids may not want to learn, but you're in school to learn, okay? Regardless of your disability. So when we were talking about my observation, what she saw, she was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Your student can just lay on the floor. Because I was trying to make him learn, and which went against my values, if in some ways, just I believe all students should be treated the same within reason, regardless of their disability. You know, it's not like I was trying to make him solve 4 times 6, you know, something magic. All I wanted him is to touch the board, you know? And this is the only time the student has structure and expectations from, you know, at home, he doesn't get that. So for me, when my principal was like, you can just let him do whatever he wants, sit, sleep on the floor, it's like, I feel like morally it did injure the student, because basically she's saying, well, he has a disability, so you don't need to teach him, you know, which I disagreed with, you know. I love my students. I push them. I really want them to learn. Even if at the end of the day, they just pick up one tiny little thing, it's a big thing for them. And I talked to a parent recently of one of my students. She said her student has improved so well since he's been in my class. He's talking more. He knows all his alphabet and the sounds. He's saying more words. This kid is basically nonverbal, but he's starting to speak more since he's been in my class. He's picking up on more things. Yeah, you may not think what I'm doing, teaching, trying to make them do the activity may not seem important, but you never know what they'll pick up. And I just feel like my principal didn't understand that where I was coming from. And that's why instead of getting a effective, she's going to give me a developing. But that's okay. It just drives me crazy, just because I think I want to teach my students. Yes, they have a disability, but I look beyond their disability because I know they can do it. They are more capable than they let on. And a lot of my parents, there are quite a few parents that like to use their kids' disability as excuse for their behavior, you know. But as the year progressed, most of my kids, their behaviors are less and less, you know. There was one kid, he used to hit me, he used to cry, yell, but now he doesn't do that. It's small things you notice, providing them the structure, the expectations, they're learning. And it just really hurt me when my principal just wanted me to let him lay on the rug, you know. It felt like it undervalued me as a teacher. So.
How we communicate and we show that we care, that we respect, that we respond to those things that people are being vulnerable when they want to share their thoughts and ideas. It's part of how we build community and connection, and it is a way that you minister to me by doing so, and I appreciate that, and thank you so much. And so I invite you to find hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
I'm thinking, and that's scary, maybe we'll just do the first verse, and I'm going to transpose it by sight, so you're not getting no help with the melody.
We're just going to do one verse.
There is more love somewhere. switched back into F.
Announcements. If anyone has any announcements for the good of the congregation or the community, please share.
This is Stewardship Sunday, and Teresa was going to run a game. However, she just left because she's sick. So I'm running the game. I have no idea what I'm doing. So this should be quite interesting. It's Stewardship Sunday, and it's the day we really encourage everybody to have their pledging ready if they haven't done it already. And so we wanted to do, and we always like to do a game or some silly thing. And he also brought a big lunch, and everybody remembered Potluck Sunday for some reason. So we have tons of food. Please have your lunch and dinner today. And so anyway, so we were going to do Wheel of Fortune, but we can't afford a wheel. So we're doing Easel of Fortune. So right after church, please stay, and we have, as usual, we have wonderful prizes. And so please stay in the sanctuary, and then I'll stumble through this, and then we'll have a wonderful lunch.
I will share with you all that, bless you. Next month, we're going to be something a little fun on the fourth Sunday of the month. Technically called Silly Sunday. It's going to be about mirth, humor, and faith. So I invite you to come and be here when I'm doing that. Also, June the 4th, this church last year was the wonderful hosts for the first Pride Blessing that took place in Niagara Falls. It's kind of the kickoff for Pride Month that Niagara Pride does throughout Niagara County. And this year again, on June the 4th at 6:30, you'll be hearing more about this. Everyone is invited. There's going to be a Pride Blessing. It is interfaith. We have Jewish, we have Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Spiritualist, UU, a wide variety of represented faiths and people, as well as drag queen story hours. So just put it in your calendar, 6:30 on June the 4th. Everyone is welcome. And so let's extinguish the chalice. Wally? Should be easier than lighting it. And let us recite together our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our benediction words come from a very well-known actor, but maybe not everybody knows just what a strong Unitarian Universalist he was. Christopher Reeves, Superman. And this is his words for us today. Once you choose hope, anything is possible. And Patty's going to play some postlude.
Well, how about I just do the last verse of the There Is More
Sure.
Love Somewhere.
I'll be quick about it.
There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Please join downstairs for fellowship, food, and stewardship.
But not yet. Okay, I'm only supposed to. Maybe you can help me, Dan. In the middle. Okay, anybody can be a contestant. We have four again. We're doing four. Does everybody know Wheel of Fortune? You have to guess the letters. Our host feels like she said she felt like she was going to throw up. She's not feeling well, so. Somewhere I have what's going to be. I'm looking for the games. I have the prizes. I don't have the questions. I thought they were in this bag, but they're not here.